Hey, how's it going? Brian Kane with the Team Allie, Beth, Allman podcast here today. I'm with Erin Young Garrett and super excited to talk about a concept that maybe doesn't get addressed all the time in the real estate world, which is the concept of grit. And we're going to call grit, get ready, it's tough, right? And as the market changes in the world of real estate, there's times where it's going to be really tough and it will be worth it. So, Erin, I know you had an amazing experience recently to learn from one of the top Olympic athletes of all time, and Jackie Joyner Kersee, and some of her story and about the grit that she brought to what she did. And I want to kind of talk about how we can bring that into the real estate world. So, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Yes, I did. I got to hear Jackie Joyner Kersee speak, and I just kept thinking through what she was talking about. And she had so many times in her life, especially as a teenager and a young adult, where it made sense to give up, and it made sense to not do what she was doing, to go back home and be with her family and go down the route, and back on the streets in which she was raised. And that wasn't what she chose to do. And as I was telling you, Brian, before, I was just curious, what do you think it is that where she got that grit to overcome, all of her challenges? And they were easy, they weren't hard challenges. They were her mom passing away, going off to college at 18 after never having left home before, to California, homesickness, tough things that, like I said, easy to quit on. And she chose not to.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about grit, right? And get ready, it's going to be tough. Like, I think that's one thing we just have to accept is that when you're pursuing greatness, like the bigger your goals are, the harder it's going to be. I mean, that's just kind of the common sense, right? So let's get ready that it's going to be tough, because if you're listening to the Allie Beth Allman podcast, I know one thing about you. You got big goals, right? If you don't have big goals, you're not taking the time to listen to this podcast. So with those big goals, one of the skills you have to develop is the skill of grit. And Angela Duckworth, who's a professor at Pennsylvania University, right at Penn, she kind of defined the term grit and does all the research around grit. And she says that grit is passion and perseverance for a long-term goal. And I think that's the thing that you see or you hear when you listen to Jackie Joyner Kersee talk, is just that passion, right? And that grit that I will not be denied. And it's interesting that, when she talks, she continues to come back to a commitment that she made to her mom. Unpack that for us, Erin, because I think that's really cool for people to understand the power of a real commitment.
And when she was speaking, she spoke of she was very homesick. So it was her freshman year, and she'd call home every night, and she'd spoken to her mom, and her mom was very big on, really not focusing on the future, but only the day at hand. And her mom didn't sound well on the phone. So they didn't go into all the details of what she was feeling, but essentially her mom said, I'm going to go to the doctor. Well, she went to the doctor and ended up being one of the worst forms of meningitis and passed away. And, and she was able to make it out to see her mom on life support, but that was it. And she stayed at her house, or aunt's house, because their house had burned down. And she was with her, her three other siblings, and, sat there and was going to stay and quit school, and, was in her sadness. And then all of a sudden she said, nope, I made a promise to my mom, and I'm going to made a commitment, and I'm going to go finish that commitment. And the next day she woke up and got a plane and went back out to UCLA.
Mm.
And I just think of that being such a huge turning point in her life. But, that commitment, and what we were talking about earlier with our commitment to systems, how important that is.
Yeah, and I think we talk about the commitment to the controllables, the commitment to the consistency. And when we look at as a real estate agent, the thing that you can control is what you do every day. And the thing that you can control is your behavior. And the thing that you can control is your systems. And if you ask yourself as an agent, well, hey, the market is changing. There's not as much inventory as there was. So am I going to work harder now? Because if I'm going to work harder now when there's less inventory, what was I doing when there was a lot of inventory? Was I lazy and now I'm going to flip the switch? Am I going to work harder, right? It's like the athlete who says, I'm going to step up because it's the big game. No. Step up every day in practice and then sync to your training. So that's what happens when the pressure hits, right? Or when a market changes or you get into a postseason or a big game, is you don't rise to the occasion, you sync to your training. And the beautiful part about training or systems is that they can grow. and they can get better, right? You can be better today than you were yesterday with your system. You can be better tomorrow than you are today with your system. But that commitment to everyday process and everyday execution, when you have that type of Jackie Joyner Kersey commitment to what you're doing, the market doesn't matter. You matter, right? The market is the non-controllable. You are the controllable. What you do every day is the controllable. So are you going to step up, or are you just going to sink to your training and the competition will fade away because they don't have the level of commitment, the level of system, and the level of grit that you bring to it on a daily basis?
Right. And also back to what you were saying about keeping it all in perspective. I think that's really important because it is going to be, with the market stabilizing or softening, whatever word you want to use, you are going to have to, keep it in line with a bigger picture of what's going on and what you're going to fall back on.
Yeah, I think it's funny you mentioned perspective. I think two key components of a real estate agent's success system, right? I call it your mental performance success system. And whether you're a real estate agent, any other profession, is two tools that you should have are a perspective poster and a vision board. And a perspective poster is a collage of images. I make mine in PowerPoint. I just bring pictures in there and make a little picture, and I print it every quarter, and it stays the same largely quarter to quarter with adding a couple images. And it's just a collage of pictures that remind me of perspective in two key perspectives: an attitude of gratitude and the compared to what perspective, right? And the attitude of gratitude that I still get to go to work every day. Attitude of gratitude that I still can see and hear you right now, right? Gratitude that I'm still here. And compared to what mentality, when I look at things like on my perspective poster is a picture of Pat Tillman, who walked away from a multi-million-dollar NFL career to go fight for our country. I have a picture of firefighters, hanging a flag at 9/11 at that at the Trade Center when those went down. And I have pictures on there that just remind me that, hey, this too shall pass. I have pictures on there that remind me that, hey, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Let's focus on what is, not what if, right? And I think sometimes as real estate agents and as performers in life in general, we focus too much on the what if, and we start to speculate into a road that never ends instead of just dealing with what is here, right now. Kind of like Jackie Joyner Kersey's mom didn't say, let's look at the future. Let's just deal with what we're dealing with right now. It's kind of like a car driving down the road, Erin. If I'm driving a car down the road, and I want to go, say, from Scottsdale, Arizona to Southlake, Texas, where I used to live. If I'm driving across the country, I leave at midnight. It's completely dark. I can't see all the way from Scottsdale to Southlake. But what I can see, because I have headlights, is I can see the next 200 feet of the road. And if I focus on that next 200 feet, and then the next 200 feet, and then the next 200 feet, and then the next 200 feet, I'll get to where I want to go. I'll get to my destination. So it's kind of like eating the elephant one bite at a time instead of looking at the elephant and going, oh, I don't know if I can eat the whole thing. Well, you'll never know until you take the first bite and then keep biting. That's grit. That's perspective, right? So the perspective is gratitude. The perspective is compared to what? And I think making that little poster or an image somewhere that you can see and use that as a reminder. I have mine on my nightstand next to my bed, that when I get in bed, I look at that. I look at my goals, my vision board, right? We talked about those two things. A vision board is just a collection of images of who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, what you want to give to the world, right? So on my vision board is a picture of me with my family. There's a picture of a book that I'm working on that I want to write. There's other pictures on there of things that I want to accomplish, things that I want to do. So by looking at those two things every day, I'm raising my basement, right? I never allow myself to fall down into that dark, negative, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm like, no, this is what I want. This is the perspective I have. I'm grateful. Let's get to work tomorrow. Here's my plan and my schedule. And I think that comes back to the system. So vision board, perspective poster is a part of your system. And ultimately your perspective is your reality. The attitude is a decision, and attitude and perspective are passengers in the same car, like they tie in together. So what are some things that you see, Erin, that can help a real estate agent to build that grit and build that perspective? What are things that they can actually do, you think, to help
Well, it's sort of,
reinforce that?
and what we keep talking about was, putting the systems in place. And, whether that's certain morning routines or, whatever, so many phone calls or so many, let's call them touches to clients, all those sorts of things. And like you said earlier, the commitment to the systems,
Hmm.
don't rise to the occasion at just one point, or, for this one situation, sync to your systems when it gets tough, and have your systems, so consistent that you're not really syncing. You're just going back to what and you're
Yeah.
not having to rebuild it.
Yeah, it's like if you're listening to this and you say, "Well, man, this is when I was at my best. This is how I rise to the occasion." Here's my challenge to you: make your best your baseline. In the
Hmm.
sense of when you perform at your best, like look at your ideal day. When you have an ideal day, what are you doing? Now do that every day. And when I say ideal day, I don't mean sitting on the beach drinking Mai Tais and Tahiti. I mean like I'm going to bed at 8:30. I'm not watching TV. I'm not watching mindless TV. I'm going to bed. I'm reading something that's educational for me that helps me be better at what I want to do in service to the world. I'm waking up early. I'm having some quiet time to myself. I'm getting up and I'm moving my body and exercising. I'm having a plan for the day. I've got my clothes laid out the night before, so I don't have to waste any time thinking, what am I going to wear? I get up, I get dressed, and I'm into my day, and I have my creative time of the things I need to do, whether it's newsletter writing or things like that. I do my creative before I do my reactive, right? And then once I get to a certain part in the day, let's say like 11 o'clock or noon or whatever it is, now I'm out the door and I'm working with clients and working with customers. I get home, I have some good family time where I'm unplugged. I'm not strapped to my phone or a TV or a device, and we have maybe a family dinner or whatever it is, or and then I'm getting ready for tomorrow. And I'm like, wow, I look back and I just had a great day and I got more done in one day than I do sometimes in a week. Do that every day. Make that
Hmm.
your baseline. Unless you and then give yourself permission to say, I'm not doing that for a couple of days. Like July 4th is coming up. I got married on July 4th, right? So I think it's our I should know this off the top of my head. I think it's our 7-year anniversary coming up here on July 4th. So like I'm going to take July 1st to 5th and I'm not going to be available. I'm going to disappear and I'm going to invest in the family time. And then I'm going to come back on July 6th. And I'm going to sync back to my training and back into my ideal day and my strict routine. And I'm going to roll. But that's a system. And your system
Hmm.
can't be driven by feel. Your system has to be driven by focus because you got to get ready. It's going to be tough and it will be worth it when you do.
Yeah. And that, first of all, happy anniversary.
Oh,
But
thank you. Thank you.
but you also said earlier, um, commitment to your systems, not your feelings. And I
Yes.
wrote that down.
Yes.
That was great.
It's funny. I work with she she's a mental performance coach. She's an author. She's a speaker. She's a world champion in tie down calf roping. I'm talking about the great Doneen Taylor. And she reached out to me. I can't remember what year it was. Maybe 2017. Reached out and said, "Hey, I finished like third, second, fourth, and third the last 4 years in the world championships of rodeo, and I think it's mental." And I'm like, I'm thinking it's a spam call, right? I'm like, rodeo. I don't even know I've never even been on a horse. Like, yeah, okay. How can I help you? She's like, well, I heard you do a podcast. I heard you, George St. Pierre, talk about how you helped him. And I'm like, well, I guess I've never been inside of the octagon either. So maybe I can help a rodeo athlete, right? And as we start working together, it was fascinating. Like, implementing systems, AM, PM routine, how you get on your horse. I'm like, when does the run begin? It doesn't begin when the shoe opens and the calf runs out and you're going after it. Like it begins before it begins, right? Your day as a real estate
Mhm.
agent doesn't begin when you show up to a client. It begins before it begins. It's preparation, it's routines, it's making sure you're present and not distracted because that's felt by the horse, it's felt by the client. So we implemented some simple systems and routines and habits, and next thing you know, she goes and wins a world championship. And then she writes a book called The Heart of a Champion by Doneen Taylor, quite possibly the best book I've ever read. I'm biased. I'm biased, right? I love the author. I'm biased, but it's fantastic mental performance book. You talk about Jackie Joyner Kersee overcoming adversity. Doneen Taylor's overcome a tremendous amount of adversity.
Mhm.
And so if you're a real estate agent listening to this or somebody who runs a group and you're looking for a speaker to talk to your team, I can't recommend Doneen Taylor highly enough with her book, Heart of the Champion. And when I asked her after she won the world championships, I said, Doneen, of all of our work that we did together, what did you learn? And I love asking that, whether it's UFC champions or rodeo champions or high performing, successful real estate agents. I said, what do you know now you wish you knew before we got started? Because I'm like, well, I should take that and share that with other people because if it worked for her and it's the number one thing she took away, it might be the number one thing other people take away. Success leaves clues. And she said, the biggest thing I took away was the importance of recommitting to your commitments. She said, every day I had to recommit to my process. Whether I wanted to do it or not, I was going to do it because I believed it would help me to win a championship. And if you recommit to your commitments, whether you're Jackie Joyner Kersey and recommitting to your commitment because you want to do it because you told your mom you would, if you're Donnie and Taylor recommitting to your commitments because you believe it'll help you go from second, third, or fourth in the world to first, and it does, or you're a real estate agent who's in a time of a market that's shifting, recommit to your fundamentals, recommit to what you do when you have your best day, and do it consistently, making that best your new baseline, and you're going to get results. But it's going to take grit. It's going to take perspective. It's going to take clarity on your goals and what you want. And it's going to take clarity of implementing your systems on a consistent basis. That's what grit really is. Long-term perseverance for long-term goals. Let me rephrase that. Grit is long-term commitment to the systems that will allow you the best chance to achieve your goals. And get ready. It's going to be tough and it will be worth it.
I love it. That's genius. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go conquer this day.
Yeah, I'm ready to go walk
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to dominate the day. Erin, thanks for being here with the podcast. Thank you everybody for listening. Don't count the days, make the days count. It's a great day to be with Team Allie, Beth. Remember, it's going to get tough. And when it does, it will be worth it. Let's dominate the day. Thanks for being here, everybody.